Welcome to a special bonus episode of Unscripted Moments, a podcast about Propagandhi. This is Greg. On this bonus episode, the topic is the business of booking and tour managing Propagandhi. My guest today is Katrin Wipper. Katrin Wipper lives in Berlin and works as a tour booking agent for Destiny Tour Booking, a huge booking agency for punk rock in Europe. She has worked with bands like Less Than Jake, Propagandhi, Bad Cop, and many more. Katrin has also performed the duties of tour manager for 2 Propagandhi European tours in the past couple of years. It was a fantastic time to chat with Katrin, and I hope you enjoy our conversation about the business of booking and tour managing Propagandhi. Katrin Wipper, welcome to Unscripted Moments, a podcast about Propagandhi.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm wondering if you can just spend a moment and introduce yourself to the audience a little bit, because you're sort of a behind-the-scenes person in the world of Propagandhi, but who are you and what do you do?
Right, so my name is Katrin Wipper. I'm 34 years old and I live in Berlin, Germany. I'm Propagandhi's European booking agent, and I've also been on tour with them as a tour manager.
Excellent. What's your day-to-day job over there?
My day-to-day job is basically an 8-hour to 9-hour day full of emails. So it sounds more exciting than it is when you say that you're a booking agent, because it's mostly an office job, you know. Mm-hmm. But it's about, taking care of the fun stuff behind the scenes. So
Excellent. Well, I didn't know that you were also an on-the-road tour manager. So you've actually been on the road with the band for tour stretches in Europe?
Yeah. I think I've been out with them 2 or 3 times. I usually take turns with David Hugel, the other tour manager. Whenever he doesn't have time, then I jump in.
Excellent.
And I think I did. I don't remember if I did. No, the last time they were here, they were in summer, but I did the tour beforehand, the Victory Lab tour.
Awesome.
Yeah.
We'll get into some details on that in just a little bit. Mm-hmm. I'm curious about your career path. How did you wind up in entertainment booking, and how did you wind up at Destiny?
That's actually a bit of a funny story, because I used to play in a ska band.
Ooh, cool.
Ironically enough. Yeah, and so I was always more interested in everything that involved organizing, or getting in touch with people and calling them up and asking them about what time we have to be at a certain show and venue, and everything like the organizational details instead of the musical details. So I would always be the person in my band that was hassling promoters about whether we could play a show, or about organizing the vans and which band we would be playing with, and so on and so forth. So that's how I kind of got interested in working in the music industry. And back then, it wasn't an option to actually do this full time, because I didn't know that it was an option, because I was more focused on having a regular job and something like that. But during my studies, I have 2 degrees as a translator, interpreter, and in international business. And during my studies, other bands would start calling me and ask me if I wanted to go on tour with them, because they had at some point played with my band and seen that I'd bossed my friends around and done the organizational end of that chapter. And they just called me up and asked me if I wanted to do the same for their band. So that's when it kind of slowly turned into something where I could imagine, I could actually maybe do this full time at some point. I became self-employed and I just started going out with bands.
Awesome. What's your band called?
They're called Jump the Shark, but this is 15 years ago.
Awesome. Very
20
cool.
Years ago.
Very cool. Very cool. How did you wind up working at Destiny?
So Destiny in Europe is probably the booking agency when it comes to punk rock, especially in Germany. So off the top of my head, there's just no other agency that I can think of that has the same kind of roster. And so at some point when I was self-employed, which lasted for 3 or 4 years, I kind of at some point wanted to be more in one place, in this case, Berlin. And so I thought about which agencies I could apply to. And afterwards, 2 weeks later, I was employed at Destiny.
Very, very
So,
cool. I know that the agency has a long punk rock pedigree going back decades.
mhm.
I mean, in Europe, I mean, wasn't it like, do you know anything about the company? Like, it was like founded back in the early 80s, right? And there's like tons of punk rock bands that are on Destiny. I think that Destiny is like sort of like behind the scenes for all punk shows in Europe, right?
Yeah, pretty much. My boss, Dave Pollock, he's been around for 37 or 38 years in the booking business, and he used to have his own band as well, that he was on tour with. And it's the same as with me. He's originally from the US, so his friends from the US would start calling him and say, "Hey, we can see that you're setting up tours for your own band. Can you maybe do the same for our bands?"
Mm.
And this is how it all started. And one of the first bands that he was in touch with was NoFX. And they're still on the roster today. But back in the 90s, he was the person that worked with The Offspring and Green Day and Bad Religion and Pennywise. And like every household name punk band that you can think of, Dave has somehow worked with them in the past.
That's amazing. And I actually just read the new biography about Bad Religion, talking about how huge they are in Germany in particular, going all the way back like in the Suffer days, like going to Europe and just selling out these rooms that were thousands of capacity, and just realizing how amazingly huge they were in Europe compared to the U.S. And I'd imagine that Dave's hand was on those shows a little bit here and there.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, definitely.
That is absolutely so cool.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming you book a ton of North American bands, and I'm curious if you have any ideas about some of the funniest cultural differences that North American bands have to adjust to coming to tour in Europe. Are there any things that they have to overcome, challenges, mindset shifts that they have to endure to be successful in touring in Europe?
There is a couple of things. So first is when it comes to water. So when you order a glass of water, you will definitely get water with bubbles or gas in it.
Oh,
So
nice.
that's definitely a cultural difference because that's maybe something that you would not expect when you're from North America. The second thing is I think that the sets are longer here. So when a band plays a show, the audience expects them to play at least an hour.
Oh,
So
wow.
everything below an hour would be disappointing. Or, you would kind of be grumpy and say, like, who do these people think they are? Are they not worth the money that we paid? So you kind of have this expectation that a band plays for at least an hour, or the headlining band at least. So for a band the size of Propagandhi, I would say at least an hour 15. So that is, something that we would expect as an audience here, I would say. And then apart from that, I think that's pretty much it. Oh, actually, a positive thing is that you are definitely well accommodated for here. So when you play a show in mainland Europe, so not the UK, but mainland Europe, you will have a really, really big catering waiting for you when you come to the venue, so that you can actually have your lunch and breakfast there, and then in the evening there's a cooked meal for you. So you're very well cared for, I would say, in that regard.
Very cool. Well, so you're on a podcast about the band Propagandhi. And so I'm curious, when did you first begin working with Propagandhi? When did you first encounter working with this particular band?
That was about, I would say, 4 years ago. That was my first year at Destiny. And they had just recently, had a handshake deal with my boss that they're coming back to Destiny because they were at a different booking agency beforehand and hadn't been on tour in such a long time that they felt it would be a good time to change agencies. So, that was the first time I worked with them. And it's been lovely ever since.
Excellent. Well, Tell me about some of your first interactions with the band. Did you start off just booking the tour? Did you start off booking and tour managing? How did you get in with this this type of relationship?
Right. So I think the first time they came back to Europe, we had two festivals lined up for them that my boss had pitched them for, and then two headlining shows that I had booked. And so I first met them in London, and I remember it was a really lovely encounter. I first went to have some English breakfast with Jord, because
Yeah.
he is my main contact in the band.
Oh, cool.
He is the one that he is my business contact, so to speak. And then Chris and Todd, they're the ones taking care of social media or of announcements, but Jord is my go-to contact. So it was really lovely to meet him. And then I remember in the evening, it was a hotel room crammed full of 10 people. And there was a lot of hard jokes and, dirty humor, which was really funny. And I remember distinctly from that night that Chris said the phrase that if it hadn't been for the fact that they all share that kind of humor or that sense of humor, being able to laugh about fart jokes, he didn't know if the band would have lasted this long, And it was really lovely to be welcomed into this smelly circle of, people.
Yeah, yeah. Well, when I first wrote to you, you mentioned that Propagandhi was somewhat of a special band to book, and also maybe a little bit unprecedented as far as some bands that you book with regards to some specific business things that they prefer. So this band is like laden with specific worldviews and value systems that they closely adhere to. And I mean, as a fan, I'm remarkably impressed with how consistent they are, like the values would seemingly make them a more out-of-the-box type of band to book. So the business of booking Propagandhi is incredibly interesting to me. Within what is in your power to share, I'm curious if you can talk about what it is like to book a Propagandhi tour with regards to like contracts and with regards to things like venue requests and anything that comes to mind that you see as like a special characteristic of this band.
Yeah, so I think in general there's three characteristics that stand out. One of them is the fact that they pay a very, very close attention to which kind of bands they want to take on tour. So they've requested with me that I only give them support band options that are not falling into the category of four white old dudes, So anything more diverse, progressive, maybe also reflecting LGBTQI values or people, just not not to have too many old white guys on the stage, and
Sure.
to have a bit of more variety. So that is definitely something that not all bands do. And that is also for me a very fun aspect of my job, and a very creative aspect, because you get to check out more bands, you get to ask friends or colleagues like, hey, can you recommend anything? Or, just to put together a great package that is fitting for the tour and for the values that Propagandhi. And I would say the challenging part about booking Propagandhi definitely is the fact that they have a pretty strict rule about playing certain types of festivals. So we actually have that in a contract as well, that they do not play corporate sponsored festivals. That means, so the usual festival you would go to, at least in Europe, is corporate sponsored, which means that you have a lot of companies throwing band at a festival, throwing money at a festival, so that the bands they book can ask for higher guarantees, or just in general for the layout of the festival, or cover the costs better or whatever. So that makes my job as a booking agent definitely a little bit more challenging, because this rule will rule out 98% of all festivals that take place in Europe. So sometimes, instead of saying, okay, we only play non-corporate sponsored festivals, we say, okay, we might play a corporate sponsored festival if they're willing to take down all sponsorship logos and host a special non-sponsored night or day of their festival. So it's pretty cool, but it's also pretty challenging because it's not the usual day-to-day business in my life as a booking agent, you know?
Yeah. So
And
a festival that like might be a no-go would be like big things like Reading or
right.
Download Festival, stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
then
unless
and then
they
something
would,
that you could do would be like Punk Rock Holiday and things like that.
hmm Yeah, because for example, with Punk Rock Holiday, they are also sponsored by Monster Energy, but with them we have the deal that you know, they have to have a special, a different. So they Propagandhi played the last day of the festival last year, which is the non-sponsored day. So they have to take down all the branding, all the logos. They have to have separate flyers and posters. So where they had the normal poster with all the band's names, there was Propagandhi with a little star and said playing the non-sponsored night. And then there was a separate flyer where the Monster logo wasn't on the flyer that we could share and Propagandhi could share. So sometimes you can find a middle ground like that, but it's difficult because it's more work, and most of the festivals, it's not worth it to them, you know? So especially for the big ones, because it just takes more time and work to work out an arrangement like that.
Excellent. So what about like room venues? Is there anything special about booking like club shows around Europe that the band adheres to?
Mm, I wouldn't say so. That's pretty. It's a pretty standard deal, I would say. Yeah. I mean, I have to be more careful and always ask the venues if they're kind of corporate sponsored. For example, I don't think they would play the O2 academies in the UK, but that's always something that we have to figure out, you know, on a individual kind of basis.
Interesting.
Yeah.
You know what's interesting about that is I actually saw Propagandhi on the supporting cast tour in the UK at an O2
Oh, really?
in 2009. So it's way before your time. So it
Yeah.
may
Okay.
have been it was before they were, you know, maybe they weren't on Destiny at the time. But that's really interesting because like maybe they've changed and altered the way that they tour in Europe over the last 10 years, you know?
Yeah, no, they were not on Destiny. They joined 4 years ago. But this is something that I would definitely, so if this came up, I would definitely want to talk to them about that, you know, and get their opinion on this. Because, for example, we had this situation a little bit in Berlin. There is a venue called Astra Kulturhaus, and Astra is a brand of a beer. And I asked the venue, hey, is your venue called because of that, because of the beer brand, or is that, you know, something that it doesn't have anything to do with the brand? Because I wanted to make sure not to book Propaganda at a venue that might be sponsored by a beer brand where the brand is even in the name of the venue, you know. But yeah, that also brings us to the third characteristic of booking Propagandhi, because, for example, in the catering rider, we have the stipulation that there is no brands like Coca-Cola or Monster, and that preferably all the catering is regional and organic. And of course, everything is vegan, so that's already, you know, given from the get-go. But the like adding the another condition that everything has or should be regional and organic if possible.
What would a Propagandhi rider sort of look like? What items would we see whenever we think about a rider for Propagandhi backstage?
So I mean, so the catering rider would focus on having enough food for, you know, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, because you usually arrive at the venue sometime in the morning when you're on a nightliner. And yeah, I don't know, maybe some some special requests like that there's supposed to be bigger bottles instead of six small ones, or just a little mindset of reducing waste and yeah, having resources in mind.
Excellent. Well, since you've done so, how many tours have you done with the band
Two.
as the tour manager?
Yeah.
Okay, so when was your first tour and when was your second tour?
And my first tour with them was in, I think, 2016. And then the second tour, I think, was in 2018 when Victory Lab, that was the Victory Lab European tour.
Okay.
Yeah, that was a really cool one.
So how many shows were each of those tours that you did with the band?
The first one was just four shows, two festival shows and two headlining shows. And then that was the first time we all met as people.
Mm-hmm.
And then the second tour, I would say there was probably around 15 shows or
Oh,
a
wow.
16-day tour. Yeah, something like that.
Okay, was the second one mostly all clubs?
Yeah, it was all clubs.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you remember who was the supporting acts for the second tour that you did with the 16 shows?
It was Dead to Me and Reviver.
Wonderful. I love both of those bands so much.
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
So that was in 2018. So what I'm curious about now is like so bands, they come out on stage and they play for an hour in the evening, but I think that a lot of people who go see shows don't understand what the rest of the 23 hours of a day are like when you're on tour. And that's a lot of downtime, a lot of sitting, a lot of waiting. And I'm curious, like, what you would do during the rest of the 23 hours a day when the band is traveling, setting up, etc. But also, what you would do on your end, like while the band was playing. So tell me about your life as a tour manager with Propagandhi.
Right. So when I was on tour with Propagandhi, I basically did three jobs in one. So I was tour managing, I was doing merch, and I was also the booking agent. So there was some tasks that I had to take care of on tour that normally, I do when I'm not on tour as well.
Mm-hmm.
So as a tour manager, you have to take care of everything that is happening at the venue. You're the first one in the venue and the last one out. And everybody who has any questions, you're basically the buffer between the band and the local promoter, the tech people, the janitor who opens, the gate so that the bus can go in, as well as, the press or anything that has to do with setting up or talking to anyone. That's your job. And then, so once you get into the venue and once you've, figured out where the dressing rooms are and put up the day sheets. So the day sheets basically state what time you can get in, what time breakfast is, what time the sound checks are, what time the show starts, the doors are, what time you have to load in and out, and what time the bus has to leave. So once you've printed that out and set up at the venue, I would go and take care of merch. So, counting merch the day before and everything up, that takes a couple of hours as well. And then by the time that is done, it's probably time for a quick dinner and then a show starts already. And then after the show, you have to break down the merch and take care of all of that kind of stuff and do the settlement with the promoters. And then head to the next venue.
Excellent.
Basically, when you're traveling in a headliner.
Have you had any bad experiences on the road, like where something like went wrong or anything, and there was some unforeseen challenges?
Not that I can recall. I think we once had a bit of an issue because one of the things you have to keep in mind is that the bus drivers can only drive for a certain amount of time, and then they, per law, have to have a break. So I remember that we had a bit of an issue because, and so this is something that you have to take into account beforehand. That's when you prepare the tour and advance the tour, which means that a couple of weeks before the first show starts, you send out around an empty sheet of paper with different questions like, what time can we arrive? What time can we set up? What time is this and that? Yeah. So ideally, this is already taken into account. But I remember that on this tour, the bus driver missed an exit or took a detour. So added another 1 or 2 hours to the schedule, and we wouldn't make his break in time or something like that. So, everything gets pushed back, and you just have to work around that kind of stuff. So.
Wow. Does anything else spring to mind, like, hotels or, like percentages of like merch and tickets, or like setting up like tables for like activist causes or anything in the venue? Does anything like that spring to mind about booking Propagandhi?
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, hotels, they prefer to have hotels if it's not a nightliner tour or if it's a day off that are in walking proximity to the venue or close to the venue, and that have a certain level of comfort because, we're all not 20 anymore and we have sore backs and whatnot. So it's nice to have a proper bed to lay your head in at night. But apart from that, the activist table, we usually arrange for that in advance. And then on the day of the show, that is also something that you'd have to take care of as a tour manager, talk to them and the venue representative where to set up and all these kinds of things. And this is also something, in advance where we think about like which NGOs or which organizations can we team up with or can we get on board, whether it's, I don't know, Sea Shepherd or Kein Bock auf Nazis, which is a German organization against Nazis.
Have you ever like made any like mistakes or anything like that booking a tour with Propagandhi, or like on tour? Like, have you like done anything where you're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I did that?
Not with Propagandhi, but I had a little mishap once. So their front of house person, Barney, he's quite a character. He's very funny. And he's a huge fan of Shameless, the TV show, the US version. And that is also something that he would watch on a regular basis in the Nightliner. And I don't know if you follow the show or not, but my partner and I, we watched the last season, and there's a Propagandhi song in the show. And so I sent a message to our internal group chat, and I said, oh my God, that's crazy. I just watched this episode and, I heard the riff of Victory Lap on that show. Like, what? Crazy. And everybody was like, what? I don't know what you're talking about. What? No, that can't be true. So I deleted my message again and I messaged one of them personally and I said, wait, did I just spoil a surprise for the sound guy? Did you sneak a song in there to, make him happy or something? They're like, yep.
Oh my God, that's so funny.
Exactly. Yeah. So, but he didn't see the message, so he was actually genuinely surprised when he watched the show and the episode. So.
That is absolutely fantastic.
But there's almost a mishap there. So.
Nice. Are there any other things that you can tell me about, like, working with this band, Sulin, Chris, Todd, Jord, maybe the Beeve, if you met him when he was in the band, David, about like, the personal relationships, the interpersonal dynamics of working with them, and what it's like for you to work with this band that so many people love?
It's definitely great working with them, and they're definitely a funny bunch. So I'd say that Chris is more kind of protective of his personal space and a bit more distanced maybe, or just keeping to himself on tour, which is totally fine. I mean, yeah. And but what everybody has in common is that they like to venture out. So that is something that I've definitely enjoyed very much on tour with them. That whenever there was downtime, we would go and check out the local castle or walk up a hill. Or, for example, we had an off day in Lindau, which is my hometown, and we would walk up a mountain, and then you could see Germany, Austria, and Switzerland from up there, and just little excursions and stuff like that, touristy things. But it's really fun to be able to do that, and not everybody has the energy to do that when they're on tour. So that is something that I've definitely enjoyed very much when going on tour with them.
That's so cool. And if I was thinking about Chris, if I was the singer in a band who did the lion's share of vocals on a show, and so much was relying on me being able to perform, I think I would maybe want to be a little distanced socially, not COVID related socially distancing, but distanced socially, because then I could refrain from using my voice overly in the hours leading up to a show, because that's got to be so much pressure for vocalists, that so much of the quality of the audience's experience is relying on you being able to do your job to the best of your ability that night.
Right, absolutely. And you can't forget the fact that when you're traveling in a nightliner on tour, yes, you have more space than in a van, but you're still confined to this very limited amount of space. And especially, usually you travel overnight, so people can sleep in their little bunk beds or little bunks. But the lounge area, for example, it's just very confined. And if everybody is awake in the morning, if you maybe have a later get-in or whatever, it just gets cramped. So there's not a lot of room to breathe, so to speak. So yeah, I completely understand that as well.
How's the gear situation in Europe? Would you be towing the gear behind you in a trailer in this, or is the transportation situation a little different than the tour bus giant trailer thing that a lot of bands use in the US?
Yeah, we would rent the back line and send a list beforehand, and then tow it in a trailer.
How do you arrange for gear for the band on tour? Because obviously I'm not sure if they would what they would bring with them. But how do you arrange for that kind of stuff too?
They bring their guitars and personal instruments and breakables, and then everything else is rented from a backline company. Yeah.
Excellent. Well, Katrin, this has been such an interesting, fantastic conversation about the business of booking Propagandhi in Europe. I think that's so cool that you were willing to come on and talk about your experiences of going on tour, of booking tours, some of the special, unique characteristics that make this band special as far as from a booking agent perspective. Any last thoughts that are springing to mind about the world of booking or Propagandhi, or just your life in general, that you wanted to share with the audience?
No, I mean, it's been fun, and thank you for having me. It was a really lovely conversation.
Perfect!